Something looks wrong on my end, but we're going to keep going. So here we go. You know what to do. It's time to dance. Here we go.
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here. Right here, and when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Hi, hello, my listening friend. It's so nice we can meet each other on the air on this beautiful, best day ever. And for those of you who are tuning into the classroom for the first time, please know I've been waiting for you. This is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide natural ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends, will feel empowered to embrace a new truth and live the life of your dreams. Oh my gosh, I just realized yesterday we did a show on fathers and fatherhood, and today I'm dedicating this class to my mom. Because, as you know, my mom has been dealing with dementia for a long time. And although I've accepted it and we deal with it, you kind of put your mind aside and you say, okay, we live in the moment. Every moment is a precious moment with my mom and my dad. And so, but they're both getting older. My mom is 89. She'll be 89 and my dad is 92. Both are failing in health. My mom is so strong, very strong. But if she remembers two words, and I was telling our guest today, Natali Edmonds, Dr. Natali Edmonds, that, we sing together. And when my mom sings one of the words, it's like victory. There's so much that caregivers, not that I'm her caregiver, but I am there to love and support my sister, my brother, and their caregiving team. They're all there to support my parents. But there are things that in our journey, we would have loved to have known ahead of time. We've kind of figured it out as we've gone along. And teachers that have come into the classroom along the way have been just a wonderful guide to us, but no one will even expect that there's someone that actually does this. Her name is Natali Edmonds. She is it's a geropsychologist. She is a doctor of clinical psychology. And when Karen told me about her, and how she not only helps caregivers with their tasks and what they're doing, but she also helps people with, preparation for that end of life, whatever it is that you need when you care for those you love and the most vulnerable. And so we reached out to Natali and she said yes. And all I can say is that since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am grateful that Dr. Natali Edmonds is here to do just that. Welcome, Natali, to the classroom. I'm so grateful that you're here.
Thank you for having me, Lily.
It's so funny because I know that my mom and dad are failing in health, but when I think of them as whole, and when I speak to them, I live in their world. And that was trial and error. I learned how to do that with experts, but you are here to teach us and guide us. So share a little bit about your background and what led you to this passion that you have today.
So I'm a board certified geropsychologist. And for 13 years, I worked at a very large hospital doing everything from doing the testing to see if somebody has dementia to visiting people in their homes, doing home-based care when people became too sick or became too much of a burden for them to get to the clinic or get to the hospital. And I just realized that the healthcare system, it's not enough to give somebody a diagnosis of dementia and tell them and their family that we'll see you in 6 months, and then see them for a 20 to 30-minute appointment, knowing that that family member is going to have a million questions and be facing a bunch of different symptoms and have no idea what to do a lot of the time. And why should they? They've never been in this position before and nobody was teaching it. And so I just felt, as a clinical psychologist, it was within, like, I had a duty to do whatever I could to help the caregivers. So what I started doing was just posting videos, answering common questions about difficult symptoms and behaviors and scenarios. I just started posting them online for free while I was working at the hospital. And it just grew into this big need that I always knew was a need, but it didn't really, I didn't realize how much of a need it was. And now I get to reach people worldwide. And so that's what really started, is I just saw the gap in the healthcare system and felt like if we really cared about people with dementia and we really wanted to help them and their family members, we needed to make it easier for them to get access to that support. And you know how hard it is sometimes to get somebody with dementia to go to the clinic, or for even the caregiver to, even for a caregiver support group or an appointment for themselves, who's going to watch their loved one with dementia? How are they going to get there? And so just finding a way to give them 24/7 access online was how I got started.
I'm telling you, once I learned that you were doing this, I thought, this is amazing. I need to get you in the classroom, because many of us, they're it's called like the sandwich generation. Some people have younger kids and they're dealing with parents that are in need sooner. And so now they have this dual pool. And for me, my children are grown. My grandchildren are, when they come over, we just have fun with them. So it's not like I'm taking, so there's a lot of grandparents now raising their grandchildren. But for me to have someone like you, I needed to support you and highlight you. Not that you need my help, but I wanted people to know, just like I didn't know you were there. I wanted them to know you so that they can start looking, because we all will face this decision. So let's talk about, because we're going to be talking about dementia. But I do also want to move towards the end of class today about talking about end of their time, their end of life, and how we can prepare ourselves as well. But if for those of you who are watching today and you find yourself in the same situation that my sister, my siblings and I find ourselves in, with elderly parents or someone that you care for, make sure that if you ask a question, you type in a Q in the comment sections for Facebook, and you can send me a text as well at 407-373-5959. But on Facebook, you can write on the comment section, but make sure you type in a Q, because many of you write comments. But I'll take your questions and I'll read them to Natali as we move along. So Natali, let's address the first question that most people ask. What's the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
Okay, so the way I like to explain this as simple as possible is think about the word cancer. When somebody says somebody has cancer, it tells you that they're sick, but it doesn't tell you what type of cancer. Is it leukemia, breast cancer, skin cancer? There's all kinds of different types of cancer. When you hear the word dementia, it means that somebody is having problems with their thinking that's more than they should be having for their age, but it doesn't tell you what the specific type of dementia is. Is it Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, Lewy body dementia, frontal temporal dementia? That's the way you can think about it. And the reason we hear Alzheimer's disease used so much is because it's the most common type of dementia. It gets the most funding for research. So we hear that word used more often compared to the other types.
Yes. Okay. So when you look at, when you are looking at the different names, one thing that comes to mind is that I've had several people, Jacob Teitelbaum, Aisha and Dean Shazai, they've been in the classroom several times. And when I hear them, they talk about how people that have been diagnosed with dementia don't necessarily have dementia. They may have, what they were saying is that 30% actually have a cognitive decline, but may be caused by other things, medications, metals, toxicity in the body. What have you learned about that in your journey with dealing with people and patients?
I like to call these dementia lookalikes. So, and it's so easy when an older adult starts to have trouble thinking for everybody to just think, oh, this must be dementia. And that's why it's so important to have a thorough evaluation and assessment from somebody who actually is familiar and an expert in working with older adults. Because yes, there can be so many different underlying causes that's leading to thinking problems. And it can even be, from my background as a clinical psychologist, even depression in an older adult can look like dementia because a person starts to isolate. They don't really talk as much. Maybe they're not focusing on their hygiene. They're not engaged in hobbies. The attention span decreases, memory decreases. So even things like reduced hearing can appear to be dementia, but the person's not even getting the information in the first place. Medication side effects for sure. So again, a thorough evaluation is extremely important, and to not jump to conclusions. I also feel for older adults who maybe realize something's wrong with my thinking right now. Oh my gosh. They sometimes get scared and they don't want to go get an evaluation because they're like, I don't want to know. In all honesty, it could be something that could be addressed and helped. So, we don't want to jump to the conclusion that this is dementia and nothing can be done about it.
Yes. And one of the things that you and I were talking about before the class today, you talked about the nutrition that people are getting in hospitals and in assisted living facilities. What can you share with a caregiver or someone who may not know so much about nutrition? And we talk a lot about it. We have Dr. Joel Furman in the classroom since 2015, talking about how important balanced nutrition is and what that looks like. But you were talking about Ensure, and a lot of seniors, to save money, they're thinking that they're downing some proteins and everything that they need. Can you share about some of these supplements that are out there that a lot of seniors and caregivers think they're doing good for that patient?
Absolutely. And I should give a caveat. I am not a nutritionist, but some things are just common sense. So I was telling Lily earlier, my father is in the hospital right now, and he's currently on a regular floor, but 2 days ago he was in ICU, and I showed up and he had his dinner tray in front of him and an empty bottle of Ensure right next to him. So I turned it around and I posted a picture actually on my Instagram. There's 22 grams of added sugar in that drink. There's no way 22 grams of additional added sugar into this beverage is something any sick person can benefit from. And so there's two things to keep in mind when we're talking about nutrition. One is the nutrition we are having. So brain changes when it comes to dementia, they are occurring 20 years before the clinical symptoms manifest. So you and I right now, this is really important for us to be watching what we're putting in our body. But then also for the person with thinking problems or the person with dementia, we also want to be mindful of what they're eating as well. Not that we have to be super strict all the time, especially the more severe their dementia is. We might consider loosening up some of the dietary restrictions if you're really focusing more on quality of life. However, when somebody is acutely ill and sick, you want to pay attention to what they're putting in their body. And when you can't read the ingredients or you see a lot of added sugar, that's just a red flag of, is this something we really want to be giving our loved one? If they like Ensure or Boost, or it's just easy because they're having a hard time eating, there's other options out there that you can just look at the label that are healthier, or consider even making your own if you like to do that as well.
Now, could you give some suggestions without, you're not saying whatever brand, but some suggestions of what would be a good alternative for Ensure and Boost and all those things?
Yeah, certainly not promoting any brand. And I would say just talk to a nutritionist or dietitian if you're concerned about your loved one, because your loved one might have other conditions to be mindful of, like diabetes and things like that. For me personally, when I'm in a rush and I'm on the go and I want like a nutritional supplement, which is what this is, and I don't want to make my own smoothie, I use a brand called Orgain. ORGAIN. Now I use the no sugar one.
Mhm.
They have one there, and that's something I personally use, but I'm not an expert in all the different types of brands. I would just say, flip it around, look at how much added sugar is in there, look at the ingredient list, see if it feels comfortable to you.
And if you recognize the ingredients,
Can you read them?
Can you pronounce them? That's one of the things that I look at when I'm looking at ingredients. And normally when you pick up fruit or vegetables, it has no ingredients.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Yes.
But if push comes to shove, there are some things that are in a box or in a bag that might have 2 ingredients or 1 ingredient. And so that's, the longer the list, put it back. And we just don't know how it affects our brain as well, and what metals are in that product as well. So, okay. So with that in mind, I feel that those are very important, but as there are different phases of dealing with dementia. My mom went through and like I said, yesterday, it just dawned on me as I started, I'm like fighting. I got to fight those emotions. Don't fight them back. But, yesterday we did a father's, dad university. He was great. He was great. And I said, I should be doing a Mother's Day, a class, but I would say this is in honor of my mom and all the moms out there that we love and we want to take care of, but there are different phases. I remember when it was first, she'd forget to turn on the oven or turn off the oven, or we would have the same conversation for every 15 minutes, or, but then when we stayed with her, my dad had a stroke. We stayed with my mom while he was there because we noticed some things were off. That's when we realized that this was a problem. And that's when my sister and her siblings started talking about what's next for my parents. How do you suggest that conversation of going from a beautiful home that they would love to die in, where they cannot keep up anymore, to an assisted living or moving in with one of the children or someone that you love?
Yeah, this is challenging. And I think it also depends on the level of dementia that person has and if they're able to fully engage in that conversation. So there's different ways to approach it based on their understanding of what's happening. If you have somebody who's more in the mild or early moderate stages, you could very well have this conversation with them about wanting to keep them safe, wanting to keep them in a place where they're getting great care, and allow that conversation to happen. Even you can tour places with them. You can ask them what would be important to them to have in a place. And the most important thing I would say is allow them to be uncomfortable with it. Allow them to have a little bit of hesitation about this idea that all of a sudden they are going to get up and move to a totally strange place with strangers around them caring for them. I think sometimes a lot of family members think, oh my gosh, this is a bad sign. They're not open to it. They don't want it. They're having a bad reaction to it. If the roles were reversed, we would probably have some hesitation too about moving to a place. So just allowing that dialogue to be there and that discussion to be there, I would say is really important, especially if they're able to engage in the conversation. Now, I work with many caregivers, I call them careblazers, where they might not be in a place where they can understand fully. And they might be in danger living where they are now, and they need extra care. But no matter what you say or do, they're not going to be open to moving to that place. And so that's a different situation where we're talking about how do we make that decision anyway and get them to a place that you think will meet their safety needs and their care needs, even though they don't agree. And I think one of the hardest things about being a dementia caregiver or having a loved one who has dementia is sometimes the very best decisions you can make are going to be against what they want because they're not able to fully understand the gravity of the situation and everything that's going on. And that's why it's important for the caregiver to be reminding themselves, I'm doing this for the safety of my loved one. These are my reasons why I'm doing it, because in the moment, some of the best decisions don't often feel good.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. We're very fortunate that my parents, were in a different place, but although they were in a different place financially than some people that are in, that money goes like that in assisted living facility. What is your advice for people who, and I'm And I have to say, I'm so fortunate to have a sister who has taken charge of my parents' well-being. And, we together, we help out when we can. And so we don't have this situation, and I'm so grateful for that. However, when you find yourself in a situation where parents have not saved properly, what can a person do at that point? And maybe there's the caregivers have to work, they have to provide for the family. What is your suggestion for them for that?
Yeah, this is a common situation. And quite frankly, even if you have a lot of funds, a typical shared room in a nursing facility is over 6 figures a year. Like, that's crazy. So one of the things I would say is, if possible, consult with an elder law attorney, because an elder law attorney is going to be able to figure out what assets do you have, even if they're few, and then how can we protect what you have so that you can keep in a legal way whatever you have, but then also qualify for some services, perhaps like Medicaid, where you could get some assistance. So talking to an expert who would know the legal ins and outs of what you could do to finagle and get services would be extremely helpful. You could also consider calling up your local area agency on aging. You could just put that in the Google bar, area agency on aging, and it will automatically populate the one in your county. And you could call them up and ask them what financial resources do they have available to you that perhaps can help. I've even had some Careblazers have success with calling the Alzheimer's Association 24/7 hotline and just explain what's going on. And some of them have been given grants to use however they want. Now, obviously, that's not going to cover the cost of a full nursing home stay, but it can be extremely helpful for some of the expenses that come up.
Well, you mentioned that what we do today is going to affect us in the future, 20 years down the road. What kind of, are you a person that says, I really believe in long-term care insurance, because, will that cover expenses for our future? Do you have any position or any research that you could share with us today?
I think the most important thing I would say, and this is something, I don't have long-term care insurance for myself, but it's something I've been thinking about. It would be extremely important to just know that policy in and out, because some of these insurance policies sound wonderful, long-term care insurance. Yet when you read it, it's like, how do you qualify for it? What kinds of diagnoses would allow you to have it? Like, what are all the exceptions? And that would also be a situation where I would contact an elder law attorney and have them read over any policy to say, if I get some type of dementia, what would this actually cover? Unfortunately, I feel like insurance is great and it's there for a reason, but also sometimes it's so confusing and you're paying into something that you're not even sure, is this going to cover what I actually need? And so being as informed as possible upfront would be my biggest recommendation.
Good. I totally agree with that, because I've known people that get to the end and then they start looking at it and it doesn't cover if this is happening or that's happening. And then they have to resort to selling everything and putting their loved one on Medicaid and then going to an assisted living facility or nursing home that is funded by the government. And that is a totally different thing. What would be your observation of picking a place like that? Because I know that when you walk into some of these places, it smells like urine, and it just, that they're not being taken care of. I'm not saying all of them, but some. We need to look for those signs. What would be other signs?
I think care facilities are as different and varied as healthcare professionals. There are some that are great and wonderful and staffed with great people. And then there are some that you would not want to send even your worst enemy to. So it's really important to look not only just for the smell in the facility, but how long does staff stick around? Do the staff members even look at the patients or the residents when they walk by? What's on the food list option? What are the activities? What's the visitation policies for family members? What do they have expert consultants on staff? What are their policies when somebody starts to have some agitation and restlessness? Do they jump immediately to a medication, or are they having some sort of behavioral expert be able to monitor and observe and find out non-pharmacological ways to intervene? So there's so many different aspects to look at in a care facility. And I know it's extremely hard to be able to know all of that upfront because it's a sales process. They're going to make it look as great as possible when you show up, but you could also show up unannounced and ask for a tour where they're not able to expect you coming and have their best foot forward.
Oh, that's a sneak attack. That's the best time to really see what they're doing. And then you look around, you go, this is what the life is going to be like with our parents in here. And one of the things that I noticed a lot is that there was never, ever enough water for my parents. So like whenever I go to the hospital or whenever I go to, when my father had a stroke, there was never enough water. So how important is hydration for someone who's already having cognitive issues?
It's so funny you're saying this because, my dad's in the hospital right now and he's like, can I get some water? Can I get some water? And I'm like, and my mom was the same when she was in the hospital. It's like, I just want some water. I'm like, wow. So the important thing to know about fluids and water is some people might literally be on a fluid restriction. Like they might have something going on with they have a heart condition where for some reason they are on a fluid restriction. We are not talking about those situations, but yeah, hydration is going to be extremely important. And that's also where having family members come to visit and observe and know what's going on is extremely important. And even we would think that spending 6 figures on care, everything would be taken care of, but in reality, it's not. So this is where I like to educate my Careblazers, control what you can control. So how could you control them having access to water? Is it about keeping water within their reach when you go visit, leaving several bottles out or leaving, having one of those water coolers in their room, calling up or talking to a staff in a nice way. Can you, every time you walk by the room, check and make sure there's water? So you want to do what you can to help, the chances that they'll have the hydration they need. But yeah, it's an issue. And obviously hydration is important for everybody.
Yeah, true. It's a major cause. I remember learning from Dr. Lorraine Day, the 3 causes of disease is dehydration, malnutrition, and stress. And she just drilled that in my head. But dehydration is so, so many people are walking around dehydrated right now. Drink your water, not your Coke or Pepsi or tea. That will not suffice. So,
and also when it's an older adult with dementia and they're dehydrated, there's an extreme higher risk for something called delirium, which is a increased acute confusion where they might start to act out. They might seem more agitated. They might seem more confused, and people could incorrectly assume that's another progression of the disease, versus they are just dehydrated and maybe they need some fluids. So obviously it can make all kinds of other medical conditions worse as well.
Yeah. And UTIs too.
Correct. Yep.
That leads to so much confusion as well. Okay. So let's, now that we've kind of got them ready to go into an assisted living facility or accept the fact that this is going to be something that they're going to need extra care, then now they're progressing along. Now you are 24/7. I have a friend that every so often her mother falls and she can't pick her up because it's dead weight, and she has to call the firefighters to come in, and they come in, they know her by name, they know her personally. And so what are some tips that you can give Careblazers, your Careblazers, as they start learning how to care for their loved ones?
One of the biggest tips is to realize that at some point, if you are caring for a loved one with dementia, you will not be able to do it all on your own. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to have to go to assisted living or a memory care facility. Many people die in the comfort of their own home. It's different for everybody, but it just means that it cannot just be you. There's going to have to be extra help, whether it's friends, neighbors, a community resource or service, talking to a social worker at your loved one's hospital or clinic to see what other options are out there. It's simply going to be impossible because every person with dementia will eventually need 24/7 care. And you are one person and you need to sleep and you need to eat and you probably need to do some other things as well, like run errands and attend your own doctor's appointment. So really starting to, even though it's uncomfortable for many people, starting to think about what would extra help look like. And your brain will immediately say, there is no extra help. Nobody is around. It's all on me. And you have to say, but what else? There has to be other options. And if you don't know them, starting with the local area agency on aging, starting with your own healthcare providers, starting with your loved ones' healthcare providers, and asking those questions. What I see a lot is that the Careblazer sometimes has an emergency, their own, maybe they broke a bone, they had a heart attack. That's happened before too. And then all of a sudden, care is able to step in for their loved one, but they're waiting for that emergency for that to happen. When I'm saying we don't have to wait for that emergency, we can start to plan and prepare now. So start creating possible things people can do, people who could help, community resources that can help. And it doesn't have to be that you need these things now, but if there is anything in your life that you are doing that maybe you do not have to do, like cook a meal, do laundry, mow your grass, pick up groceries, and somebody else in your life has ever asked you, let me know if there's anything I can do. Tell them, say, oh, actually, it'd be really amazing if the next time you're at the grocery store, you could pick me up X, And so just getting in the uncomfortable habit of reaching out and asking for help, even if you don't technically need it, because eventually you will. And anything we can do to help take some load off of you is going to be important.
Such great observations. And I hope that all of you are listening today, because it is just, it will affect all of us. Yeah. All of us are born with parents. And whether they're alive or not alive, either you've gone through it, or maybe there's a beautiful aunt or some neighbor that might need that extra loving care. But but here's that hero, that super care hero that feels that they have to do it all. They pour all their energy into that person, but then if there's an emergency, then they're leaving that person without any attention, because, you can't just stop, in the middle of a stroke or in the middle of a heart attack and say, oh, wait, I need to figure out who's going to take care of Johnny or Sue or my mom or dad, whoever that is. So I love making that plan. But what happens to that person if they choose to remain like on it, no matter what? They refuse any care, they refuse any help. What could potentially happen to that person? What is the cost of that person's health to not have someone helping them?
Burnout. Absolutely. Like
Let's
you're
talk
not
about
going.
burnout.
Yeah, at some point you will not be able to go on. The other risk is that your loved one's care could start to decline as you're not sleeping, as you're not feeling like you're able to do everything. At some point, like that does impact your loved one's care as well. So the risk to you is burnout, heart attack, stress, hospitalization, but also the risk to your loved one maybe not getting all of the attention and care that they need. Yeah. I was telling my Careblazers recently, we have all heard the analogy. So many people, it's like they're driving a car, and the way many caregivers go, it's like, I'm going to wait till my gas tank is empty to refuel. But you're in the middle of the desert and there's no gas station around. It's like we refuel even when there's still gas in the tank when we're driving a car, because we realize that's what we need it to keep going. We have to do the same too. You don't have to wait until it's completely empty. If you do, it's going to be much, much harder. And there's no special award and no special badge of honor when you do it all on your own.
Yeah. And let me tell you, when it brought back a memory when we were transitioning my parents to go into an assisted living facility, we all took different roles. And one of the roles, because I live about an hour and 5 minutes away from where my parents are right now. But one of my roles was I brought my mom and dad, and they stayed with me for us, my husband and I, for 10 days. I had the honor and the privilege of taking care of bathing my mom. And every morning she'd open the door and she'd get, Lily, what are you doing here? I'm like, this is my house, mommy. Surprise. It's like, how do you deal with that? But one of the things that happened was, as she had to come back again because there was another transition that he needed to make, and my dad left, and I had my mom, and she was sundowning, and I remember having to do the show. I wasn't able to plan because it was an emergent situation where I had to take my mom, at the privilege to taking my mom. But I found out that the Alzheimer's Association has free respite care, where they come and they sit with your loved ones. So we were able to have them sit with my mom while I was doing the show, which was beautiful. And it was free. Yeah. And so what are other things other tips that you can give people as they start, their journey with us to survive this care blazing?
So again, like, reach out to the resources that are there. You don't know unless you ask. So the Alzheimer's Association is one, but there's also the Lewy Body Dementia Association. If your loved one has Lewy body, also as a tip, your loved one doesn't have to have Alzheimer's disease type of dementia to call the Alzheimer's Association. You can still call them up. Your local area agency on aging, and then talk to people. I was interviewing a Careblazer recently, and she said at some point she was reaching her breaking point. Her loved one was on hospice and starting to really decline. And she just started opening her mouth and letting people know what she was going through. And she said she was floored by the response about the people who stopped by to help, about the people who were able to come into her home and show her, even a nurse who was living in her building that they never had a relationship before, showed her how to give her husband the injections he needed. The neighbor who saw, who had a dog and her husband liked seeing the dog, they started planning connections together. So just letting people know what you're going through, many people will step up in ways that you may not even realize.
Wow. Well, creating your own network of friends. And that's so wonderful. What else would you say is important for us to know as the progression of their illness continues?
Their illness will progress. And no matter how amazing you are, no matter all the wonderful things you do, no matter all the great food you make them, they will continue to progress. And it does not mean anything negative about you and what you are doing. So making sure you're taking care of yourself, connecting with other people who are going through a similar situation, and doing what you need to do to keep yourself in a place where you're able to continue to care is really important.
That's good. That's good. Okay. So before we move on, and I would love for you to share anything that you feel that we need to share before we talk about end of life. But before we do that, I want to encourage all of you to go to whenyouneedafriend.com. If you're a subscriber, you have all of Natalie's information. You know where to reach her, you know her website. So just go to whenyouneedafriend.com to learn and grow and check out all the videos. But I ask, because the algorithms are such, I need your favor to share this video with everybody you know, because this is information that's being suppressed. So go to whenyouneedafriend.com. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. And when you subscribe, you get a bunch of free stuff, you know, and then go to my social media, like and follow me on all social media. And you can also like me on Telegram. And at whenyouneedafriend.com, we're broadcasting live right now. So you can watch from there, because there's some people that refuse to look at social media now. I understand that. So we've made some adjustments for that. So while you're there, check out my sponsors. Like they're supporting the classroom, please support them. And there's my Shop Now bag. There's different products that are from head to toe, natural, healthy, even ways to be pain-free and build muscle. All the products in the Shop Now bag help out the classroom. Most of the products help out the classroom, and they will help you be able to have a healthier life. Go to my workshop tab and learn about the latest workshop that we're going to do with Dr. William Davis. He is the author of Wheat Belly series and Undoctor Yourself or Undoctored. He's now written a book called Super Gut, and we're going to be doing a Super Gut 6-week course with him. He's going to guide us all the way around. We're going to have some giveaways for people that register early. So check that information out. And also all the do-it-yourself workshops that we have, because remember what Natalie said, what we do today will impact our future. And last but not least, you can become an enrolled student in the classroom. So if it's $1 or $1,000 a month or a one-time donation of your time, your talent, your treasure, please give and give generously. We totally appreciate it, because expenses have increased as censorship has increased. So please do whatever you can, even just sharing this video right now on your Facebook page, on YouTube, will help the classroom. Today, we are so fortunate to have Natali Edmonds. She's a doctor of clinical psychology, a geropsychologist, and she is here sharing information that we may or might not know we needed to know. We probably don't have access to, because when you're in the moment and when you hear your loved one is in need, it's like the world just shuts down. You have no idea where to go and to turn to. So I want all of you to meet Natali and to be able to use her as a resource as well. Her website is careblazers.com. That's careblazers.com. Natali, are there any programs that you would like to highlight that people can go to and learn a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel. All of the videos there are free, in-depth training videos on what to do with difficult situations and even how to deal with caregiver stress. On my website, careblazers.com, there is a free training people can opt into, which is how to care for a loved one with dementia without the overwhelm, dread, and confusion. And through that training, you'll learn about the one program I have called the Care Course, which is where I offer live support, grief groups, support groups, Q&As with me, expert series, as well as give you access to all of my life's work with all of the programs.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. And I'm so grateful. And I hope this is your first, not your last. So I'm looking forward to more conversations with you. So let's continue on. Any other tips before we go into end of care? Because we pour a lot of our love and eventually they come to the end. And so before they come to an end, are there other tips that you can give us that you feel are important, maybe not popular topics, but are important to discuss?
Yes. So whatever you are facing with right now, whatever challenge, whether it's a behavior with your loved one or something you're feeling, there is always hope and a way to help the situation feel more peaceful. And when we can't change the situation and we can't change the other person, which is the majority of the time, we can always change our view of it, our perspective of it, what we're thinking about it, and that can have a profound impact. Most people want to talk about the tips and tricks for how to deal with different dementia behaviors, and I have hundreds of videos that go over that. But if you really want lifelong, transformative, not just informative, but transformative life situations and care, it's going to start with you and your own mind and your own thoughts. And if there was anything if I was only allowed to teach on one thing, it would be mindful of what you're telling yourself in your mind, because that's the most important thing. So there's always hope. There's always a way, and it's really going to start with you.
You know what? You're speaking my language. You're speaking my love language. This is what we talk about here in the classroom. We take ownership. That has been one of the things that I think that I've gotten to. I look at the positive side of dementia, and I wrote an article I used to write for Florida Today, and one of the articles was on Mother's Day, some of the blessings of dementia. And one of them is that I gave my mom a gift. This is when things started getting worse with my mom. And she actually opened that gift 10 times. And she would put them away, and then she'd open the gift and she would have the same reaction every single time. It was almost like Groundhog's Day. And I got 10 kisses. And every time she would hug me and kiss me. And I thought, how beautiful is that? We need to find the beauty in even the saddest situations in our life. And I was able to rejoice. And like I say, when she sings one of the words of the songs that we sing, we rejoice. And if she doesn't, and when she sees me and she doesn't recognize or what she said, I don't understand, I always say, yes, I get it, mommy. What would you like for me to do about that? And so she'll tell me. And so, living in their world to me has been almost like an acting role. But when I sit back and I think about where they're at right now, I get so emotional. But when I'm with them, it's about them. It's about them. And I really believe that could burn people out. I can just go in and step out. I can go in and step out. But the people that are dealing with, you hurt me, you stole from me, you an abuse from them, what is your advice for them?
So much to do here, but I would really become what I call a dementia detective at this point and figure out when they say these things, what is happening, who's around, what time of day is it? Are there themes? Are there patterns? I get really detailed with, I encourage my Careblazers, let's start taking some notes and figuring out what's going on. And then when you truly join their world, right? How are they viewing it? How are they making sense of it? We could easily become defensive and want to say, of course, I'm not stealing anything. Nothing is happening. And as soon as you do that, you are separating yourself from that person with dementia, and they will likely mistrust you more. So we have to learn to see it from their viewpoint. And this is in my live Q&As in my care course, we're going through these examples all the time. And so much in dementia care, it's not a one size fits all, because every person is different. And what they might be interpreting the world, like the reason they think you're stealing could be different than another person with dementia and then why they think you're stealing. So I would say first and foremost, become a dementia detective. Sometimes it's the smallest, littlest thing that you don't think means anything, but to them, they're viewing it as that's the reason. So starting to view it in that way can help take the emotion down a little bit and get you closer to solving what's causing that.
Yes. And so, that has been, when I had my mom, there was one situation where I just couldn't help her anymore. She thought that my father had left her, and he wasn't even in the house. He had left, but he wasn't there. And it was just her. We were taking care of her. And it was the pain that my father had left her. And she was crying and sobbing. And then once I'd calm her down, it would happen again. Those loops. How do you deal with these loops that keep happening?
Yes.
That, for me, I finally had to say, Mommy, I just can't help you. And I laid down in bed with her. I held her hand, and she just cried. And I just had to let her cry.
Yeah.
I don't know. What could I have done differently?
So there's always it's wonderful. You did what I would recommend a lot of people do, which is reassure the person. People with dementia are still going to have human emotions of distress and upset and anxiety, and you want to reassure them. If something is happening repeatedly, like a loop, you want to try to get ahead of that behavior as much as possible. So I would be thinking, what are some possible reasons that would make sense in my mom's head for where my dad is at, for where her husband is at? Was he always on the farm? Was he working? Did he have a golf club? What was it? Was he a coach of a sports team? And you could get ahead of it and say, John is coaching the kids league tonight. He says he'll see you later. He's so excited to see you. Yeah. Or perhaps there's a letter on the table that you always direct her to. It's like, you know what? I don't see him here right now, but I think he left this for you.
Good one.
And she reads it and it's like, hey, honey, I'm running late. I love you so much. I'll see you later. So there's different ways like that. It's like, what would make sense for where he's at in her mind, and then get ahead of it and, have a way to respond using that information.
Yeah, I used everything. He went to Walmart. He did say goodbye. I was talking to you at the time. You were a little distracted. She wouldn't buy it.
Yeah. And so in those cases too, you can also, what I would say is respond to their emotion. So you're not trying to give a reason, you respond to their emotion. And it could sound like something like, you sound like you really miss him. And then she might be like, yes, I do. I can understand. You care about him a whole lot. I really do. Nice. Well, you know what? I think we have some photos over here of you guys together. Let's take a look. And then as you're flipping through the photos, all of a sudden you're on some different photos or some more fun times, and maybe he's no longer in some of them. So you don't actually have to close the loop or go back to why he's gone. You can just acknowledge the emotion underneath what she's saying. Don't try to distract her right away, because they'll know you're trying to scooch off the topic, and then naturally redirect to something else.
Beautiful. I wish I would have known about you back then. I would have been like glued to YouTube. Okay.
Yeah,
so
I did a real quick on Instagram, and it was like the 10 words I hate hearing the most. And like that are so hard to hear. And it's like, I wish I would have known about you when my loved one was still alive. I hear that so much and it breaks my heart, but hopefully that will happen less and less as the internet.
And less. We're going to get you out in the common world here. Okay. So now, my mom is 88. She's going to be 89 in August. My dad is 92. Both of them. My mom is strong, but we know that she's getting older. My dad is weaker. My dad could not accept what was happening to my mom. So he kind of like shut down. Yeah. And so my dad is weaker, but my dad is amazing. So, but we know that he's slowing down. He's sleeping more. What are some of the signs that we can look for to prepare ourselves? Not that I want to cry tears before I need to, but to see the signs so that I can address it, like you said, ahead of time, so that we're not caught off guard.
Yeah. I think with dementia in particular, it's ongoing prolonged grief where you're constantly watching them decline over time. It's different than some of the other illnesses where it's a bit more acute and the time frame is short. In many ways, caregivers are grieving for many, many years. And I want to say for everybody, there's a wide range of emotions you may experience. Some people may experience relief, not that they're glad their loved one is gone, but they're perhaps glad their loved one is no longer suffering. Some people might experience extreme sadness. So just however you feel, I would recommend you don't judge yourself like that you should be feeling some other different thing. Just allow yourself to feel however you feel. Caregiving is hard enough. We don't have to judge ourselves for the way we feel as we go through it. One of the big things I would recommend is to bring up with their healthcare providers the idea of hospice before you even think you need it. Everybody freaks out by this word hospice. And the reason is so many people wait until it's right up until the end. So the average person dies within 2 weeks versus you can, in order to qualify for hospice, somebody just needs to be within 6 months, an estimated 6 months. I've worked with many people who are still 2 years. I have a Careblazer right now in the program whose loved one is graduating from hospice after being on it for 2 years because they're getting more care, they're getting more support, the family's getting support. It does not mean they are going to die right away if you're bringing it up in time. So like already you could be bringing this up with their healthcare provider and say, what do you think about hospice? Now, a lot of healthcare providers don't even really realize. They're like, oh no, he's not there yet. It's like, well, can we just talk about it? How would we know when he is there? Because it's technically 6 months or less, not just 2 weeks or 2 days.
Yeah, and I love the graduating from hospice.
Yeah.
I have well, anyway, I don't want to tell a story. I want to keep listening to you. What else do we need to know as we get ready for that end of time with our loved ones?
Well, just making sure you're taking care of yourself. This will be a time when like losing my mom in June, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so many things from like the funeral arrangements, the burial place, the where's everything at, there's like a lot that it's even hard to grieve in that process. And so what I would say is making sure you're doing what you can to truly the basics, take care of yourself during that time. Are you getting hydration? Are you getting food, nourishment in your own self? Are you sleeping? Just really doing what you can to take care of yourself in that way, I would say is extremely important because the things you don't even want to deal with when somebody has passed away are the very reality of what you're going to be dealing with. For me, it was a very strange experience. Like, my mom just passed away. I feel like I should be grieving, but this hospital is calling me and I need this death certificate and I need that. And it's like, whoa, like it was just a lot.
Good words of wisdom. And what about the do not resuscitate, the DNR? Is that different in every state, the rules for DNR, or do you have to become aware of what's going on in your state?
I'm actually I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay.
Whether it's state specific, but DNR is something you truly want to, your loved one should have an advanced directive. So like right now, anybody watching, if you have a loved one with dementia, like see if they have an advanced directive. We could have advanced directives right now about what do you want them to have happen? And those can vary. The language can vary from hospital to hospital. It can vary. And one of the things on there is going to be a DNR, do not resuscitate. And I have a video on Careblazers. It's like, should somebody with dementia receive CPR? That will be something you guys can Google if you want and watch, but it's something to really consider. Really thinking about and talking to that doctor, the medical doctor about like, what are the chances somebody would even survive from this? Like most people probably as they age are probably going to be a DNR. So that's
well, I tell you what, Natali, this is just the dipping our toe in this. There's so many YouTube videos that you have. Please go to careblazers.com and subscribe to her channel, support Natali as well. This is great information. Final word before we go, before the music starts, what would you say?
I would say for anybody out there caring for an aging parent or a loved one with dementia, thank you for what you're doing. The very act of what you're doing, a lot of times the people with dementia aren't able to know what you're doing or appreciate it or express it. And so I just want to say you are truly what's keeping this world dementia friendly. And so just thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Amazing. Amazing. I'm so grateful for you. And even though I didn't have you at that moment in my life, others won't have to go through this. Share this video with everybody you know, because everybody will go through this. Don't wait until you have to go through it before. And I love the tips that you have shared about dementia, for the burnout for the caregivers, and the analogy. Such great, powerful information. So please share this video, share it with your friends, with your loved ones, and let them know. Anyone who is caring for someone that you love, let them know how grateful you are for them. So it's an amazing, amazing thing for all of us to experience and see that you are teaching us some tools to be proactive. And so go there and check out all the videos. Natali, thank you so much for everything that you're doing to help during this very difficult time in our lives.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you, please know we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide. I want to honor all the mothers out there and wish you all a happy Mother's Day and more. And please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott and Dr. Natali Edmonds wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. Good job.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
Thank you so much, Natali, for being in the classroom today. Thank you for watching, guys. Please go check out her website. It's called careblazers.com, and help support her in her journey as well. Thank you so much for watching, and we're going to say goodbye.